Last year at this time, I was a typical teenage girl. A grade 11 CHAT student taking tri-sci, stressing about grade 12 course selections, and making plans for university. I was a competitive synchronized skater, traveling internationally to represent Canada, and training around 20 hours a week. I had just gotten my G2. I was getting excited for a fun upcoming summer, and I had just been elected as team captain for the upcoming skating season. Life was pretty perfect, until one day it wasn't. My life changed forever. I heard the words that no one ever wants to hear. You have cancer. December 31st, 2016. We had just finished a hard couple of weeks of training, gearing up for the qualifiers for the Junior World Championships. En route to our cottage, all of a sudden, the left side of my lower lip went numb. I told my mom what was going on, and she was concerned but didn't think too much of it. She asked me if I had eaten anything out of the ordinary, insinuating a possible allergic reaction. I said no. I reassured her that I was totally fine and I would let her know when it went away. And 4 hours later, it did. Until about 2 weeks later, when after practice, the same feeling came on. And again 2 days later, and again the next week. After consulting multiple doctors, all saying that this was absolutely nothing to worry about, we believed that this symptom would go away with time. Maybe my wisdom teeth that were scheduled to be removed were pushing on a nerve, we thought. Maybe it was an allergy to the cold, as this feeling only came on after long practices in cold drink. I had blood work and an MRI on my brain. All clear, totally normal. Still uneasy, we went to see more specialists, including a neurologist, sports medicine doctor, and oral surgeon. Test after test, appointment after appointment, everyone gave us the same answer. Weird, but nothing to worry about. You are 100% fine. June 2017, exams. I remember vividly the night before the functions exam. I couldn't get to bed, not because I was anxious about the exam, but because I had intense pain in my left knee. My mom asked if I had fallen at practice or bumped it on something. I hadn't, and there didn't seem to be any bruising or swelling. So I went to bed and hoped that the pain would be gone in the morning. It wasn't. It became more and more severe as time passed. I went on with my regular routine, skating through the pain. One morning, my knee pain was just unbearable. It was so extreme that when I got up to the bathroom, I collapsed to the ground. My doctor told me, based on my description of my symptoms, that she thought I had some type of stress fracture. This made logical sense. I was a skater, I used my knees, and they were tired. But just to be sure, she sent me for an x-ray at Sickens. The radiologist concluded that it was probably a minor stress fracture or lesion that would heal with time and rest. There was also some patchiness on the bone, but they were fairly confident that this was just inflammation of the surrounding tissue. Since I was a competitive athlete and couldn't really take time off to let the supposed injury rest, they decided to MRI the area. They were in no rush. After all, a stress fracture was not an urgent case relative to the demands of the other patients. My mom's motherly instinct that something was wrong kicked in, and she called in favors to get a quick appointment. July 13th, 2017. The MRI was scheduled for 10 p.m. By the time I got into the MRI machine, which for those of you who have never had an MRI, is a very claustrophobic chamber in which you are strapped down to a stretcher inside a scanning tube that makes loud noises. It was already 11 p.m. The MRI was only supposed to take 20 minutes. I had absolutely no sense of time in the machine, but it was boring and felt extremely long. Finally, a man let me out of the machine, and I thought it was time to go home and to bed. He told me to wait there and that he would be back in a second. A few minutes later, he told me that the doctor wanted to take some images on other places on my leg. In order to maximize the clarity of the images, they needed to inject a substance called contrast intravenously. I hated needles, and this scared me. Long story short, I was in the machine for 3 hours, until 2 in the morning, and then the MRI turned into a full body one. The patchiness on my knee that was deemed inflammation was found all over my bones. and they didn't know exactly what it was. This is when things started to become serious, but still, cancer never crossed anyone's mind. July 14th, 2017. The next day, my parents got a call from Sick Kids, and they said they didn't know what it was, but something was definitely wrong, and they needed to do further testing. They wanted to rule out the more serious diseases first, so they started with the worst, cancer. I found myself in the oncology clinic. I was surrounded by sick-looking children who were clearly in the midst of treatment. It was not the first time I was here, though. Call it irony, but for my grade 10 careers job shadow, I chose to follow a pediatric oncologist at Sick Kids because I had dreamt of pursuing this career ever since my Zadie had been diagnosed with cancer. Now, almost 2 years later, I was back in these halls for my own personal journey. The oncologist I saw was friendly and calm, outlining the necessary tests I would need to undergo in order to discount the possibility of cancer. These included more blood work, bone marrow aspirations, and biopsies. These procedures sounded daunting. The next day was my 17th birthday, and I had 20 girls coming up to the cottage to celebrate. I had such a fun party planned, and no one knew what was going on with my health. So we asked the doctor to do the test a few days later, and he gave us his blessing. July 15th, 2017. Happy birthday to me. What an amazing day. The sun was shining, I was laughing, and enjoying the last day of what I didn't know would be the last happy day for a long time. July 17th, 2017. The day had arrived. I had a double bone marrow aspiration scheduled. I had pushed away the anticipation of the procedure, but I couldn't push it away any longer. For the bone marrow aspiration, I would be put to sleep for the first time in my life, as it was considered a surgery. I sat outside the operating room, my head ready to explode with nervousness, and my parents tried to keep me calm. The blood work and bone marrow aspirate results both came back normal. What a relief. No reason to believe I had cancer. The next procedure was a biopsy of a mass that the MRI showed under my armpit. A mass that measured 4 by 3 by 2 centimeters in size. They didn't know if it was a swollen lymph node, a tumor, or anything else. This required major surgery and involved being an inpatient at the hospital. July 21st, 2017. 3 days had gone by, waiting to be called for surgery. I had fasted the whole time, as it is mandatory to do before any procedure. Finally, late that night, I was called for surgery. I went home the next day, drugged on morphine, but recovering well. The new problem was that I was supposed to fly out the next day with my parents to Halifax to visit my siblings on Visitors' Day at Camp Kadima. Of course, at this point, my siblings knew nothing, like the rest of my family and friends. My dad flew out to visit them, and my mom stayed back with me. When we FaceTimed my siblings, we told them I had a surgery on my knee because they knew that I was having knee pain in June. July 24th, 2017. Everything changed forever. My mom received the worst phone call she could ever receive. It was my oncologist, who informed her that the biopsy confirmed that I did, in fact, have cancer. She told my dad, and they managed to keep it from me from the next couple of hours. Later that night, they both came in the car to take me to skating practice, and on the way there, they told me the devastating, shocking, and life-changing news. I had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. By the time they discovered it, it was already in stage 4. It was scary and deeply saddening, but most of all, shocking and confusing. Yes, I had some weird lip tingling and some knee pain, but other than that, I was a healthy, thriving, athletic girl. How could a disease that I defined as something old people get and die from happen to me? In the next few days, they had to find the exact strand and subgroup of cancer to make a plan for treatment. July 28th, 2017. I was admitted to Sick Kids Hospital to start my cancer treatment. The treatment protocol for my specific cancer entailed 7 rounds of grueling chemotherapy. It is known as the harshest chemo regimen of all cancers, especially on kids, and its harshness lends to inpatient treatment. It included 3 minor surgeries a week, where I would be sedated so that they could inject chemo into my spine and brain. Since I needed to receive such a large quantity of medication, they inserted a central venous line, which was basically a permanent IV that goes into the vena cava from my heart to my neck, and tubes hung out externally from my chest where they could inject chemotherapy or take blood. To put this device in involved another major surgery. My protocol involved 8 days of chemo and then 2 weeks of recovery. So I thought after the brutal chemo week, I would be in the clear for the next 2 weeks. Well, I was very wrong. Week 2 was arguably worse than the chemo weeks themselves. This is because all of the side effects from the drugs hit. Because chemo's job is to kill all the bad cancer cells, in doing so, it in turn kills all the healthy cells, which is why your nails, skin, and hair fall out. The chemo heavily suppresses your immune system, causing extremely low blood counts, which is why I needed over 50 blood transfusions. Some of my worst side effects were debilitating mouth sores, where holes were burnt through my tongue, cheeks, esophagus, and entire digestive tract, and disabled me from eating and even talking. I had to be on heavy doses of intravenous morphine and ketamine to subdue the pain. My hands and feet blistered and completely peeled off until they were fire truck red. And a scary adverse allergic reaction to an anti-nausea medicine that had only been seen once before. Not to mention that vital signs are taken every 4 hours, and the IV machine, which I was hooked up to 24 hours a day, would constantly beep an alarm. So sleep was a pretty foreign concept. They knocked me down so low, and I had to wait for a few healthy cells to regenerate before starting the next cycle. And then they zapped me right away. Again and again, and 6 more times after that. For the first 3 cycles, I didn't leave the hospital. One of my parents would sleep in my room every night, and the other would be with me during the day. We didn't tell anyone still, because we feared that the word would spread to my siblings who were still at overnight camp. My parents decided it was best not to tell them, because if they did, we would have to bring them home, and it was better in the interim for them to focus their undivided attention on me. After the 3rd round, I was discharged for less than 48 hours. I never appreciated my own bed more. Of course, I decided to spend my free night at the rink, so I surprised my team at practice. It was amazing to see friends and just get out of the gloomy hospital setting. This didn't last long. I went right back to the hospital the next morning to start the next cycle. This pattern continued until December. I would FaceTime into my practices and catch up with friends, but for the most part, I was too sick to even have visitors. I had to tell my siblings and my booby, who had just lost her husband to cancer a few months ago, what was going on. I didn't want to scare them. I knew I was going to beat the cancer, but it wasn't going to be easy. I sometimes tried to fake how I was feeling in front of them so they wouldn't worry about me. I have fast-forwarded through a very slow 6 months and have spared the vulgar and personal details. It was horrible. I can't quantify the effects that it had and still has on me. I try to forget the pain and trauma that it caused me, but the scars that mark my body are reminders. I choose to call them battle wounds, as they are a part of who I have become. Just as the physical scars will stay with me forever, I will never forget what I have experienced or what I have been able to overcome. It is hard to come to terms with why this happened to me, and I don't think I will ever find a reason. Ultimately, I'm one of the lucky ones. It seems like an oxymoron to use the words cancer and lucky in the same sentence, but I see myself not as a victim, but as a survivor. I beat cancer. It stripped me of my innocence, of my body, my hair, my dignity, and it made me question my faith. But it didn't take my life, and for that, I truly feel lucky. I'm grateful not only to be alive, but for the newfound appreciation that I have for life. I'm stronger physically, emotionally, mentally, and my pursuit of becoming a doctor still prevails. I'm able to find silver linings even in the worst adversities of life, one of them being the opportunity to speak to all of you today. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. I hope my message to you has had as much of an impact as all of your support has had on me. I'm very proud and humbled to announce that I am now back in school part-time and leave tomorrow to travel to Hungary and Croatia to compete in the Junior Synchronized Skating World Championship, where I will indeed be skating. Healthy. It has taken hard work to rebuild my muscles and endurance, but I'm getting better each day. If you want to have an impact and do one thing, I encourage each and every one of you to donate blood. It is so important. Relay for Life is such an important event that strives to educate the community about cancer. It truly touches everyone. It serves to commemorate those who have lost their battle, celebrate those that have won the fight, and support those enduring it. Together, we can make an impact by showing our support for one another and coming together as a community to fulfill the values that Relay for Life represents. So fundraise, promote awareness, and always find a reason to smile. Thank you.